Well, the Milken Institute Asia Summit is now underway here in Singapore, bringing together top leaders from government, finance and business.
Now, this year's theme is Progress with Purpose, Collaboration Amid Complexity. And it couldn't be more timely as the world navigates economic uncertainty and geopolitical fragmentation. Well, Julie Yu is on site at the Four Seasons Hotel. Julie, so what can we expect this year and who's going to be your first guest?
Yeah. Good morning, guys. I'm at the Milken Institute Asia Summit, where over the next 3 days, more than 1,500 global leaders are coming together to find pathways for collaboration in a world that's just grappling with rising protectionism, geopolitical tensions, and urgent climate challenges. And joining me now is someone at the heart of shaping those conversations, Deal Lacey, Executive Vice President at Milken Institute International. Thank you so much for joining us.
Julie, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to Channel News Asia for being our media partner.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you. The halls are starting to get busy, but I wonder, why does this type of events matter? You know, bringing different voices and perspectives together in a world that just feels more fractured, more divided and volatile than ever.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We're living in a very fragmented world. We're fragmented by geopolitics, domestic politics, media headlines, and technology. And the Milken Institute, we believe that having a neutral platform for nuanced conversations is important. We need to have more conversations, not less.
Okay. So it's not all about talk, because when we just look at the theme, which is progress with purpose, collaboration amid complexity, could you break it down for us? What does it actually mean in practical terms?
Well, most of our stakeholders are global investors. And we, as an institute, we're a non-for-profit, nonpartisan think tank. And we want to have smart conversations. And we believe that smart investors are good for society. And where they allocate their money can solve the world's greatest challenges. So we're having 70 sessions on issues such as different asset classes. So from real estate to credit. We're going to deep dive into certain countries like India, China, North Asia. We're going to be talking about China, to Japan and Korea. And then we're also going to be talking about big global issues. How do we feed our children? You know, how do we ensure climate change resiliency? How do we deal with cyber crimes and human trafficking? So we're going to try to address all these problems that are incredibly important.
Yeah, you talked about problems, and I'm sure you talked to all the business leaders as well as policymakers ahead of the summit. What would you say is the common thread in their worries that they see as the biggest threat that could derail Asia's economic growth?
I think the biggest challenges of the moment are the big three T's. So trade, tariffs, and technology. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with supply chain resilience? How do you deal with tariffs? Do you change your business model? Do you change the pricing of your goods and services? Do you turn to different markets? And then, of course, technology. How do you adapt to the advances of AI that are going so fast? How do you make sure that your workforce stays relevant in your products and services as well? So it's a lot of challenges. I think that's what people are most worried about.
Okay, you brought up AI, and that's part of the agenda that will be discussed heavily here, which remains largely dominated by the U.S. so far. But what unique advantages do you think Asia have in this rapidly evolving space?
I think China has a lot of interesting advancements in AI. Yes, the U.S. is leading because it does have the ecosystem as well in terms of investors, universities, a lot of collaboration of the ecosystem. But China is moving fast in terms of cost-effective AI, where they can do the similar things to the U.S. but at 30% of the cost. And I think that's exciting to see. And also their use of applications for consumer and others, it's really more advanced in the U.S. at certain parts.
All right. And another topic that will be discussed is the current state of globalization. Some say it is retreating, others say it is in transition. Where do you see it? Where do you see it headed? It's a tricky question.
It is a tricky question. And I think a lot has changed in the post-COVID world. But I think in the end, businesses are trying to stay global. And I think you see in China in particular, there's the globalization of Chinese companies, and they're expanding more than ever before. Companies like BYD have a global footprint, and there are others like that following. So it's really interesting to see.
Sure. And then there's climate. The summit lands just weeks ahead of COP30 in Belém, Brazil. I mean, regardless of what President Trump said during the UN General Assembly, where he called climate change one of the biggest con jobs ever, do you think enough is being done by Asian businesses and governments to...
I think, yeah, as you said, regardless of what President Trump says, I think in the end, both the consumers, young consumers in particular, they want companies to address some of these sustainability issues. And in the end, I think investors also want, for the long-term viability of their investments, they have to think about climate change.
Absolutely. And what would success look like for you at the end of these 3 days? Are there specific partnerships or announcement that we should be looking out for?
Well, way beyond at the end of these 3 days, for global investors to be able to think through how they're going to channel their investments towards solving these global challenges that we discussed. And I think for us, that's a success, is having these meaningful conversations.
Yeah, we will certainly be watching out for progress and partnerships in the next 3 days for this summit. Thank you very much for your time, Laura.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay, and that was Laura Deal Lacey, Executive Vice President of International at the Milken Institute.